Taoiseach, the report on paramilitary groups in Northern Ireland comes to a very stark conclusion that the IRA Army Council still exists, and the report endorses the PSNI Chief Constable George Hamilton's assessment that the IRA exists and that some of its members were implicated in the murder of Kevin McGuigan, and that the Provisional IRA members believe that the Provisional IRA Army Council oversees both PIRA and Sinn Féin with an overarching strategy. And a fundamental question there, Taoiseach, in terms of our republic, that we must answer, and which the report doesn't ask, the threat to democracy from an organisation that is involved in politics but retains a military structure with an active intelligence gathering department and access to weaponry. Those are fundamental questions that leap out of this report, no matter how uncomfortable and unpalatable they may be, that we need to respond to, and we need full honesty and transparency in relation to it. And in addition to that, Taoiseach, individual PIRA members, it says in the report, remain involved in criminal activity, such as large-scale smuggling, and there have been isolated incidents of violence, including murders. And we know from the report of the Commission of Garda Síochána that the Criminal Assets Bureau, since its establishment in 1996, has raised about 28 million from the proceeds of crimes, actions and tax assessments in respect of over 50 individuals who have had connections or associations to the Provisional IRA in the past. And other investigations are proceeding. So the fundamental question there, Taoiseach, is this, and I put it to you yesterday. What this really illustrates is the absolute need for the British and Irish governments to establish a strong, well-resourced joint agency to tackle once and for all the organised crime being undertaken by paramilitaries. And in the context of the Provisional IRA and its members, to ask the question, Taoiseach, are people absolutely certain that any of the proceeds from the organised crime that's been going on by alleged individual pro-Republicans is not finding its way to the political project? And I don't say that lightly.
Sorry.
Okay.
Question, please. Thank you. Question. Thank you.
I've been labelled certain things now by people who don't like what I'm saying.
We're way over time.
But I would refer you, Taoiseach, to the proceeds of the Northern Ireland bank robbery, and I would refer the members to my right. Check the courts in 2010. Check the 3 members who were prosecuted and found guilty in relation to handling the proceeds of the Northern Ireland bank robbery. One was an unsuccessful candidate for Sinn Féin, the other was a fundraiser for Sinn Féin, and the third in the courts pleaded guilty and described himself as a Republican and a Sinn Féin member. So there's form, is my point.
Thank you, Deputy.
People mightn't like what I'm saying.
Taoiseach,
that happened, Taoiseach. And we cannot turn a blind eye to this. And there's a fundamental question. I described it as a twilight zone. People are individuals one day, they're good Republicans the next day. And it's very difficult for people in our situation to work out which is which.
You're nearly 2 minutes over your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Taoiseach.
Thank Deputy Martin for his question. Let me remind you again of what I said in Cambridge some time ago about this matter. 21 years after the IRA ceasefire, it's past time that it should have any capacity for any threat. And statements to the effect that the IRA have gone away or have left the stage are simply not credible. The reports speak for themselves. I spoke to Prime Minister Cameron last evening about this. Clearly, the fact that the DUP and First Minister Robinson have gone back into the talks, which are underway at the moment, including the leader of the UUP, I think is a positive sign, given the 2 reports that were here, both from the PSNI and from the Gardaí. Now, I pointed out to you yesterday that CAB, I think, had brought 99 individuals before the Special Criminal Courts, and as you say, 28 million confiscated as a result. But the impact of the report presented by the 3 members yesterday, to the effect that the members of the Provisional IRA believe that an Army Council now controls the Sinn Féin party, both in political terms and in electioneering terms, is certainly a matter that has to be responded to by the President of Sinn Féin. I've said to Deputy Adams on many occasions, I've never accepted that he was not a member of the IRA over those years, or a member of the Army Council, and he has denied that on umpteen occasions. Suffice it to say, your question, Deputy, is about a particularly well-resourced cross-border unit between both governments dealing with the Gardaí and the PSNI. Now, I'm not opposed to this. I'm not opposed to it. The suggestion is a valid suggestion. I pointed out yesterday that we have 2 cross-border task forces at the moment that are proving to be very successful, both in terms of diesel and fuel laundering and tobacco smuggling, and I gave the evidence of that and the result of it. I'd suggest, Deputy Martin, that this is part of the process of the talks that are now underway. This is partly the reason why the talks are underway. There is no place for the kind of activity referred to in the PSNI report in this society, in this democracy or on this island. And the Garda Commissioner has pointed out that there'll be no truck with this kind of carry-on from the remnants of our divergent groups from the Provisional IRA, which, as I said, has poisoned so many people in society over the last 35, 40 years. So I'd suggest that, and accept that your question is a valid question. I do think that given the operations that are going on at the moment with the 2 task forces that operate in a cross-border session way dealing with drug smuggling, tobacco smuggling, fuel laundering and so on, if it comes out of that process that there's an acceptance that there should be a further development in the sense of having an agreed joint cross-border unit, cross-border agency or whatever, I'm not opposed to that, but I would like it, Deputy, that it be considered in the talks, and if it comes from that, it's going to have an enhanced status. So I'm happy to report to the House that the work of the 2 joint task forces at the moment at Cancorla is very successful. But if the representatives of the people, and Minister Flanagan represents us at those talks at this moment, feel that it would be appropriate for both governments to have a different agency, well-resourced, with all the facilities to deal with this for once and for all, I have an open mind on that, and I'd be supportive of it if it comes from there, Cancorla.
First of all, I appreciate the Taoiseach's positive response to the basic question that I've asked, and I'm quite prepared, obviously, that the talks would consider that, and that it may emanate, a proposal of that kind may emanate from the talks process, because the peace process belongs to us all. It doesn't belong to one political party, as has been asserted from time to time. We've all invested heavily in the peace process, none more than the people of Ireland themselves, who voted on an all-island basis for it. But no one expected 17 years on, after the Good Friday Agreement, that we would essentially have an organisation, the strategy of which is overseen by an Army Council, in accordance with this report, overseen by an Army Council, that retains access to weaponry, that has a military structure and active intelligence gathering department. That's what we're up against in the Republic.
Question, please.
That's what we're up against in the Republic. And the situation has always been one of denial, denial, attack, attack. I've just been called a gurrier by Deputy McLaughlin. And that is the type of intimidation,
that sort of language,
intimidation that people engage in when they're challenged. When they're challenged. And remember,
sorry, would you put your question, Deputy?
Remember,
would you stay quiet, Deputy? Thank you.
Taoiseach, if I could put it to you, do you not agree?
Sorry, would you stay quiet,
It's the Chief Constable's assertion, which has been endorsed by this report, that Provisional IRA members were implicated in the murder of Kevin McGuigan, that has created this crisis in the peace process. Not anything I've said or anything anybody else has said.
Sorry, Deputy, we're over time.
And I want to put a Taoiseach to you. The final question I want to put to Taoiseach is this. The 50 individual members of the IRA who've had tax assessments against them arising out of criminal proceeds and so on like that. I understand the need for in-camera rules, Taoiseach, in terms of tax and so on like that. But given the extraordinary nature of this issue and its importance on both jurisdictions,
Thank you.
Is there a need to review, Taoiseach, in this specific context, how the in-camera rule or procedure is being used to, if you like, protect or hide the identities of many of these individuals who CAB have assessed as having major issues, proceeds of crime, and are making tax settlements with CAB, but undercover and in a way that's not transparent. So we don't get a picture. We don't get a complete picture of what actually is happening.
Thank you. Taoiseach.
Well, there is always the issue of natural justice, and in respect of CAB, which has proven to be very successful in following the money trail over the years. I'm quite sure that Deputy Martin's not implying that because an individual might be named that they might actually be guilty. The issue here, I'm quite sure you appreciate that, is one that's probably worthy of consideration, but CAB has proven to be extraordinarily successful in following the money trail. Now, I have differences of opinion with you on many matters, but I've never descended to the level of what you've just been called from the far side. While we might differ and argue in our politics, we don't have to descend to that level. And I think it is fair to say that the culture of intimidation and fear that has been generated in many cases speaks for itself. I think it is noteworthy to say now that the talks are going on. First Minister's back in there, Ministers reconstituted, UUP, all of the parties are currently engaged as we speak here, and I think that's the place where these things have to happen. There are questions obviously arising from the Northern Report, and paragraph 13, which actually says, based on their intelligence, that the Provisional Army Council is deemed to be overseeing both the Provisional IRA and Sinn Féin, based on the reports from provisional IRA members. That's an issue that needs to be addressed by the Sinn Féin president. Whatever way we are here, either you as leader of your party or me as leader of mine or the Taoiseach leader of the Labour Party, we are not subject to direction from any army council. I hope that the talks will discuss these matters in a rational way on both reports, and that the talks can conclude reasonably quickly.